SCA Minhag of the Week, Life Cycles, Marriage. So we've been speaking the last number of episodes about the marriage, and many have asked, well, how similar or how different were wedding ceremonies in Halab or in Damascus as compared to what we're used to here in the United States? So there's really not much different, but at the same time, there are things that are the same and things that are not the same. So first and foremost, the questions that have been posed to me is about marching. Obviously, marching was not anything as elaborate as we have today, with so many people marching and the whole marching procedure taking a long time, or a hazan coming down the aisle singing. None of that existed. It was simple. You had the flower girls, if you will, throwing flowers before the bride. You had the groom marched with his parents. You had the bride march with her parents, and that was basically it. At the spot that the ceremony would be done, what we call today the huppah, okay, we'll talk about that in a moment, the bride in Halab sat on a bridal throne while the groom stood. And that was generally the way the ceremony was done, with the groom standing and the bride sitting. In other places, the bride stood. But in Halab, the custom is clearly documented in many, many sources that she sat down for the ceremony. The bride was always to the right of the groom, never the opposite way, and never with anybody between them. They were always next to each other, the groom and the bride to his right. How did they face? Did they face the hechal with their backs to the people that were in attendance, or were they facing the people? And generally, based upon so many different pictures over a period of, let's say, the last 100 years or so, they faced the people. What was the huppah? The huppah, interestingly enough, was, and I'll talk about what was done in Halab, what was done in Brooklyn, how things have changed in Brooklyn. So what we know from numerous sources, what was done in Halab, as opposed to other Sephardic communities where the tallit would be placed over the head of the bride and the groom after the hatan. If the wedding was during the day, the hatan would say beracha v'leta'atif b'sisit, and if it's a new tallit, to say shehayanu, let's say he would make both those berachot, he'd wrap himself up in it and then cover the bride together with him. In Halab, weddings, as we said, were generally done at night, so only the beracha of shehayanu would be said if it was a new tallit. But what was done in Halab was a little bit different. They had the tallit attached, all four corners, to poles. And this tallit attached to poles with four different men holding these poles, and this tallit attached to the poles working as a canopy over the bride and groom. And this is similar to what we grew up here in Brooklyn. In Brooklyn, growing up, it was generally the hatan would make the beracha of the tallit. Let's say it was just shehayan, because at night it was a new tallit, and then the father of the bride, father of the groom, and usually, either a brother or an uncle from each side would hold the corner of the tallit over the bride and groom, and it was not put down over the bride and groom's heads as we see commonly today. So this tallit was held above the heads of the bride and groom, as opposed to on top of the heads of the bride and groom. And this is the general way that it was. Sometimes you would have a double application with the bride and groom having a tallit over them, as well as the additional tallit canopy above their head. But generally it was just the tallit canopy above their head. Here in Brooklyn, as I said, it used to be carried in four corners. In Halab, it was attached to poles and carried that way. Approximately 1985, it started changing here in Brooklyn to the way we know it today, with it placed over the head of the bride and groom, and that was a custom that was done in many other communities, but not in the Syrian communities. In Damascus, they also held it on top of the bride and groom, holding it from four corners. And in fact, during the berachot, they would shake the tallit and not keep it stationary, and that was to lighten the mood and to make everybody there joyous and invite them to participate. Okay, I shook a little bit, you come and you grab in the corner now and you get involved in the ceremony as well and shake the tallit a little bit to give a little bit of merriment and joy to the bride and groom. Now, besides what we talked about, facing the bride, facing the people as opposed to their backs to the people, and the way the tallit was placed, we have a beracha of Besamim. We have two different sets of berachot said at the wedding. We have the berachot of the Erusin and of the Kiddushin. The Erusin are the first berachot before the tallit, and then the Kiddushim are the berachot after the tallit, or the berachot nisuin, sometimes referred to. In any case, during those first two berachot, we add in our community a beracha of Besamim. After Hagefen, we make a beracha of Besamim. And it seems that this is a very old custom. It's mentioned by Abu Darham in the name of Harambam. And if you look in the Yemenite sources, which are very, very scrupulous in upholding the practices of Harambam, they also have this beracha of Besamim. But as opposed to doing it in the Erusin berachot, they do it after the Hagefen of the Kiddushin berachot. Also, as we said, there was no singing per se during the ceremony, except for this one ancient song, being approximately 500 years old, we've now discovered, but it's still a very, very old song, written by Rabbi Yisrael Najara. It's called Yifatech Tamah. Here is a very, very old handwritten manuscript Pizmon book from Halab, written by Hacham Shaul al-Abyad in Halab in the year 1866. And here we have the song Yifatech Tamah. And this song has been reproduced in our Pizmon book, the Red Book, Shirush Baha Halil V'Zimra. And this was the only song that was sung at the ceremony itself, and it was sung before the Sheva Berachot. So in other words, after the Hatan would make the Beracha of the Tallit, and the Tallit would either be put over his head or used as a canopy, the Hazan would sing this one song called Yifatech Tamah. And I'll bring just the first few words. Yifatech Tamah Mibish Hamma Mahpir Yareh. It's a very, very old, ancient tune, but it awoken in the people and in the Hatan Kala the glory and the Kedusha, the holiness of this moment. And that's what the Kiddushin is. It is, you're going into Kedusha, you're going into holiness. It's holy matrimony as referred to in American society. And according to the Torah, it is truly holy, and you feel the Kedusha with this beautiful ancient song. It's a song that was sung until very recent years in Halab, and it's something that we need to bring back, we need to uphold, and we need to pass down to future generations as well. Mabruk to all the happy couples.